Natalyia Sokolova had grown up with the kind of life most people only saw in films: marble floors, private jets, tutors flown in from Europe, and a father whose billions seemed limitless. She was one of those impossibly elegant Russian women who turned heads wherever she went. Tall, almond blue eyes, porcelain skin, and the presence of someone who had always known wealth. But behind her beauty and wealth, she carried an emptiness that clung to her like a shadow, an emptiness she had learned to hide with poise. Her father, Viktor Sokolov, owned energy companies, real estate blocks in Moscow, half of a bank in St. Petersburg, and more businesses scattered across Asia. He built empires out of nothing but hunger and steel. Natalyia didn't inherit that hunger. What she inherited instead was a certain kind of loneliness. All the luxury in the world did not guarantee warmth. When Viktor began receiving threats from competitors, he doubled her security detail. Ex-military men, large men, men with scars on their arms and ice in their eyes. Her protection became a moving fortress. But there was one detail the old man insisted on without negotiation: a Filipino bodyguard recommended by a friend in Manila. "Filipinos," he said, "are loyal beyond logic." Natalyia didn't think much of it. She had bodyguards her entire life. One more meant nothing. The Filipino's name was Gabriel Reyes. He was not the tallest among the team, nor the most muscular. In fact, compared to the Russian ex-special forces around him, he looked almost ordinary: medium build, black hair, warm brown eyes, and a calm expression that rarely changed. But there was one thing about him that Natalyia noticed the moment he stepped into her father's mansion: his posture. Straight, but not stiff. Professional, but with a softness that didn't feel forced, like he understood boundaries without needing to stare her down. She also noticed something else. He never flinched around wealth. Not many people could stand in a mansion built like a Versailles replica and behave as if they were in a grocery store. But Gabriel did. He called her Ma'am Natalyia at first, until she asked him not to. "Just Natalyia," she said. Yes, Natalyia," he corrected, ears slightly pink. He didn't talk much, but whenever he did, she found herself oddly comforted. Filipino accents, she discovered, had an interesting mix of softness and firmness. He could say the most serious things and still sound gentle. Within weeks, she preferred talking to him more than her other guards, who mostly grunted or nodded. She asked him once why he became a bodyguard. "To help my family," he answered without hesitation. "I send money home, and I'm good at protecting people." She expected that answer, but what came next surprised her. "And I like the feeling," he added, "knowing someone is safe because I'm there." Something about the sincerity of it stayed with her. Months passed with the calm rhythm of routine. Gabriel was always present, quiet, observant, never overstepping. He walked 3 steps behind her in public, 2 steps beside her when the crowd thickened, and 1 step in front when danger felt close. At home, he stayed invisible, only appearing when needed. Not once did he make her feel trapped the way other bodyguards did. One winter afternoon, Natalyia found him sitting outside the mansion during his break, holding a small plastic container of food from home. She walked over, wrapped in a fur coat and sipping warm tea. "What are you eating?" she asked. He looked embarrassed. "Just adobo, Natalyia." "I've heard of that," she said, curious. "Filipino chicken?" "Sometimes pork," he replied. "This one is chicken." She held out her cup. "May I try some?" He instantly shook his head. No, it's not, proper food for someone like you." She frowned. "Food is food. Give me 1 piece." He hesitated before offering her a small bite. She tasted it and instantly felt warmth spread across her tongue. "This is good," she said. "Very good." Gabriel chuckled softly. "It's home." Home. She envied the way he said it, with fondness, with belonging. Her own home felt more like a museum she lived in. She asked him then, "Do you miss the Philippines?" "Every day," he answered. "But this job, it makes my family's life better. That matters." She admired that. Most men she knew chased power, money, status. Gabriel chased responsibility. It made him stand out in ways she did not fully understand yet. It was during a trip to Kazakhstan for a business summit that everything changed. Natalyya's father sent her there in his place. There had been whispers of tension, rumors of sabotage, and murmurs that one of Victor E.'s competitors wanted to make an example out of the Sokolov family. Victor insisted on her staying in Moscow, but Natalyia had spent her life being protected, hidden, and shielded. She wanted to prove she could handle responsibility too. The event hall sparkled with chandeliers and diamond-lined embroidery. Natalyia stepped into the crowd like a queen at a ballroom, but she felt restless, anxious. The air felt heavy, almost hostile. Her security team surrounded her like a moving wall. And yet, none sensed the danger fast enough. It happened in seconds. An explosion rocked the entrance of the hall. Guests screamed. The ground shook. Natalya's champagne glass shattered in her hand. Her bodyguards panicked. One shouted into his radio. Another ran toward the fire. Two more scattered to assess exits. Within half a minute, they were all gone, pulled in different directions by fear and instinct. Only one remained with her. Gabriel. He grabbed her arm firmly but gently. "Stay behind me, Natalyia." "Where are the others?" she shouted, breath shaking. He didn't answer because he already knew. They fled. He was the only one who stayed. The smoke thickened. Flames spread. Security alarms blared overhead. People were running, pushing, crying. It was chaos in its purest form. Gabriel positioned himself between her and the fire, leading her through the crowd with the precision of someone trained not just to protect, but to stay loyal no matter what. They moved toward a service exit at the back of the hall. It was blocked by debris. Gabriel used all his strength to move a fallen metal structure aside. She could see his muscles tremble with effort. Sweat mixed with dust on his forehead. But he cleared the path. He pushed her forward first. "Go!" She hesitated. "What about..." "I'm right behind you. Always." Outside, snow fell heavily. The cold air hit them like a slap. Sirens wailed in the distance. Gabriel guided her between buildings, avoiding open areas. He kept scanning for suspicious movement. His breathing was steady despite the chaos. Natalyia followed him, clutching his jacket, feeling the tremble in her own hands. When they reached an alley between two old brick buildings, Gabriel suddenly stopped and raised his hand. "Stay behind me," he whispered. Something moved at the far end of the alley. A shadow, then another. Voices in a language Natalyia didn't recognize echoed faintly. She felt her heartbeat hammering in her chest. Gabriel positioned himself in front of her, one arm stretched protectively. She had never seen him look so focused, so unshakably still. His entire body became a shield. When the attackers approached, he didn't run. He fought. It wasn't like the dramatic action movies she had seen. There was no flipping, no shouting, no flashy technique. Gabriel fought with calculated, controlled movements. Every strike was efficient, every motion precise. He moved like someone who didn't want to hurt anyone more than necessary, but would do whatever it took to protect her. Two men lunged at him. He dodged the first, disarmed the second, and used the momentum to knock the first one down. Another attacker moved in from the side, but Gabriel saw him in the corner of his eye and reacted instantly. He grabbed Natalyia by the waist and spun her out of harm's way. She felt his strength, the firmness of his grip, the safety of being held by someone who would rather die than let something happen to her. After several intense moments, the attackers fled, leaving only the sound of their footsteps fading in the snow. Natalyia pressed a trembling hand against her chest. "Gabriel, you..." "No time," he said, still alert. "Others might be coming." He guided her away again. By the time they reached a safe building where emergency responders were gathering survivors, Natalya's legs were numb from cold and fear. Gabriel immediately wrapped his jacket around her shoulders, leaving himself with only a thin shirt. "You'll freeze," she whispered. "I'm okay," he said, gently tugging the jacket tighter around her. For the first time in her life, she felt truly protected, not by walls of wealth or teams of men who followed orders, but by one person whose loyalty was deeper than fear. The other bodyguards eventually found them hours later. They came running, shouting apologies, excuses, explanations. They had gotten separated, they said. They had tried to fight their way back. They did what they could. But Natalyia saw the truth in their eyes. Fear made them leave her. Only Gabriel stayed. That night, after returning to their hotel, Natalyia sat alone in her room, trembling. Her mind replayed the explosion, the chaos, the moment her bodyguards abandoned her. But what haunted her most was the image of Gabriel standing in front of her like an unmoving wall, refusing to let harm touch her. A soft knock pulled her out of her thoughts. "Natalyia," Gabriel's voice came from the other side. "Are you awake?" She opened the door. He was standing there, still wearing the same thin shirt, shivering slightly from the cold. "You shouldn't be out without your jacket," she said. "I'm sorry," he replied softly. "I just wanted to make sure you're safe." Something inside her chest softened. This man, this calm, quiet Filipino from a world so different from hers, risked everything for her without hesitation. She stepped aside. "You can come in." He did, but only by a step. He never crossed boundaries without permission. For a moment, they said nothing. They simply looked at each other, breathing the same quiet air, each carrying the weight of what happened. "You saved my life," she whispered. He shook his head. "I did my job." "No," she said firmly. "You did more than that. Everyone else ran. You stayed." He swallowed hard, as if her words struck something deep inside him. "I promised your father I would protect you," he said. "And your promise means more to you than your own safety?" she asked, voice trembling. "Yes," he answered without hesitation. "It does." Her heart ached at the simplicity of his truth. Loyalty like his was rare, so rare she had never seen it in her world of power and pretense. "You're not just my bodyguard," she said softly. "You are something else." He lowered his gaze. "I'm not allowed to be anything else." Her breath caught in her throat. She approached him slowly. "Who said that?" "It's professional boundaries," he said, his voice quiet. "Lines I shouldn't cross." She took another step. "And what if I don't want those lines anymore?" He blinked, genuinely shaken. For the first time, she saw fear in his eyes, not fear of danger, but fear of something far more complicated. "Natalyia," he whispered, "I will protect you with my life, but I can't. I can't be selfish. Your world and mine, they don't match." She felt something warm and painful bloom in her chest. "You think I care about that?" she whispered. He didn't answer. His silence said everything. Gabriel was loyal, but he was also disciplined. Maybe too disciplined. The same loyalty that saved her life also built a wall around his heart. A wall she wasn't sure she could break yet. But she wanted to. Because in that moment she realized something profound. Something terrifying. The only man who ever made her feel safe was a man who believed he wasn't allowed to love her. And she knew, deep inside, that this story was just beginning. The morning after the attack, Moscow felt different for Natalyia. The city had always been a mosaic of cold elegance, glass towers reflecting gray skies, snow-dusted sidewalks, luxury cars silently gliding through wide avenues. But now the streets felt heavier, as though the city itself had witnessed what she went through and was quietly grieving with her. Her father arrived home early from a business trip, furious and shaken at the news of the failed attack. He summoned the entire security team to the Grand Hall, his booming voice echoing across crystal chandeliers. He didn't shout often, but when he did, it felt like a storm rolling across the room. Only Gabriel stayed quiet and still, standing slightly behind the line of guards, gaze lowered. Natalyia watched him from the staircase. Even now, after risking his life for her, he held no pride, no arrogance, no expectation. He stood with the humility of someone who simply did what needed to be done. "So tell me," Victor thundered, pacing in front of the guards, "which one of you stayed with my daughter?" Silence. None of the men spoke, not even to lie. Victor's eyes hardened. "I already know the answer," he said. "I want to hear it from you." Again, silence. It was Natalyia who stepped forward. "Father," she said, her voice steady though her hands trembled. They all ran, except Gabriel. The room froze. The bodyguards who once strutted with confidence now looked at the ground, shame cutting across their faces like ice. But Natalyia didn't care about them. Her eyes stayed on Gabriel, who still didn't lift his head. Victor exhaled, a long, heavy breath. "All of you," he said to the others, "are dismissed, for good." They didn't argue. They knew they had no excuse stronger than fear. One by one, they left the hall, heads bowed, boots echoing until the doors shut behind them. Then Victor turned to Gabriel. "You," he said. "Come forward." Gabriel finally looked up, meeting Victor's intense gaze. Natalyia's heart raced. She didn't know if her father would reward him or reprimand him. With powerful men like Victor, gratitude and anger often looked the same. Gabriel stepped closer. "Why did you stay?" Victor asked, though it wasn't really a question. He was studying him, evaluating him like a man appraising a rare diamond. Gabriel answered simply, "Because protecting her is my job." Others said the same, Victor replied. Others didn't mean it, Gabriel said quietly. A beat of silence fell. Then, unexpectedly, Victor's stern expression softened. "My daughter could have died," Victor said, voice roughening. "But she didn't, because of you." Gabriel didn't react. He didn't smile, didn't straighten, didn't show pride. He simply bowed his head. "I didn't do it for reward," he said. Victor's lips curved slightly. "Of course you didn't. That's why you deserve one." Natalyia felt her chest warm. Her father wasn't a man who praised lightly. In fact, sincerity from him was rarer than diamonds. "You will stay as Natalyia's head of security," Victor said. "Whatever you need, request it. Whatever equipment or backup you want, I'll provide. Salary, double." Gabriel was stunned. "Sir, that's final." And with that, Victor left the hall. Natalyia finally allowed herself to breathe. Gabriel stood there, bewildered and still processing everything, until she slowly approached him. "Congratulations," she whispered. He chuckled softly, rubbing the back of his neck. "I didn't expect that." "I did," she said. He raised a brow. "You have too much faith in me." "No," she answered gently. "You have too little in yourself." His breath hitched slightly, but he didn't argue. For the next few weeks, Gabriel adjusted to his new responsibilities. He coordinated new security personnel, many recommended by the embassy and vetted by Victor's intelligence contacts. He analyzed routes, replaced faulty equipment, improved emergency protocols, and even trained the household staff in crisis handling. His discipline was unwavering, but something between him and Natalyia quietly changed. She found herself seeking him out more, not because of fear, but because the sound of his voice calmed her. He was a presence she trusted with her life and, increasingly, her heart. And Gabriel. Though he tried to keep his emotions buried, she saw the subtle changes. The way he looked at her a second too long. The way he stepped closer when they walked, as though proximity alone allowed him to breathe easier. The way he softened whenever she smiled. But he held himself back. Boundaries, walls, discipline. Loyalty was his shield, and his prison. It was early spring when things took a turning point. They were traveling to St. Petersburg for a business event Natalyia had promised to attend. On the train ride, she sat across from Gabriel in their private cabin, watching the snow slowly melt outside the window. "Gabriel," she said suddenly, "do you ever think about going home?" He hesitated. "Every day." "So why don't you?" she asked quietly. "Because I'm still needed here," he said. "Your father still receives threats. You still..." He stopped himself. "I still what?" She pressed gently. "You still need protection," he finished. She leaned back, studying him. "And would you leave when I no longer need it?" He swallowed, unable to answer immediately. His silence gave her the truth. "No," she whispered. "You wouldn't." He looked at her then, truly looked. Even if I wasn't your bodyguard, he said slowly, I would still want to keep you safe. Something warm spread through her chest. The train moved steadily, but everything around them felt suddenly still. You care about me, she said softly. He exhaled shakily. More than I should. She leaned closer, her hand brushing against his for the briefest moment. I care about you too. But just as the space between them grew warm and fragile, the train lights flickered. A sudden jolt shook the cabin. Gabriel instantly stood, senses alert. Wait here. Before she could respond, he stepped out into the corridor. She heard muffled voices, footsteps, and what sounded like a scuffle. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Something was wrong. Something was terribly wrong. The cabin door flew open. A masked man stepped in. Natalyia gasped and stumbled back. He lunged toward her, too fast, too sudden. Before she could scream, a hand grabbed her wrist. But then another hand caught the attacker from behind. Gabriel. He slammed the man into the wall, pinned him with one arm, and swiftly disarmed him. The struggle lasted seconds, but fear stretched it into eternity. Gabriel's eyes burned with fury, the protective kind, the kind that carried something deeper than duty. When the attacker was subdued and security arrived, Gabriel pulled Natalyia into his arms without thinking. Are you hurt? He asked, voice shaking. She clutched his shirt, breath ragged. No. He held her tighter, his heart pounding against hers. For a moment, time dissolved. There were no roles, no boundaries, just the pure instinct of two souls that recognized each other. When he realized he was holding her too closely, he slowly stepped back, face reddening. I'm sorry, he murmured. Don't be, she whispered. The incident was handled swiftly, and the attacker turned out to be connected to the same rival group that targeted her before. But what Natalyia remembered most from that night wasn't fear. It was the way Gabriel held her like she was the most precious thing in the world. Days later, after the event ended and they returned to Moscow, Natalyia found herself unable to shake the feeling growing inside her. It was no longer something she could dismiss or rationalize. It was real. It was deep. She was falling for him, and she suspected, no, she knew, he was falling for her too. But he was stubborn, a fortress of loyalty. She needed to break through. One evening, after dinner, she went to the security office where Gabriel was checking surveillance feeds. Gabriel, she said softly. He looked up, surprised. Natalyia, is something wrong? No, she said, approaching. I just wanted to talk. He straightened, suddenly nervous. About what? Us. He froze. She sat in front of him, eyes gentle. Why do you keep pushing me away? He struggled for words. I'm your employee. You're more than that. I'm supposed to protect you. You do, better than anyone. And I can't lose focus, he said, voice low. If I care too much, I won't think clearly. And during the attack on the train? She asked. Did you lose focus then? No, he whispered. Exactly. He breathed out, defeated. Natalyia. She reached out and took his hand. He flinched slightly, not from disgust, but from the weight of the feeling he tried so hard to suppress. You saved my life, she said. Twice, and you never asked for anything in return. I don't want anything, he said, voice shaking. Except for you to be safe. She squeezed his hand. I don't need safety right now, Gabriel. I need honesty. He looked away, jaw tight. She leaned closer. Do you have feelings for me? His breath trembled. Yes, he whispered. She closed her eyes, relief washing over her like warm water. When she opened them again, he looked terrified. But that doesn't mean... She cut him off by gently placing her hand on his cheek. You don't get to run away from this, she said softly. You stayed with me when everyone else ran, remember? His chest rose and fell rapidly, as though battling the urge to surrender. I'm scared, he admitted. Of what? Of losing control, of failing you, of wanting something I'm not supposed to want. She moved closer. Then let me decide what I want, she whispered. Silence fell between them, thick and heavy. Their faces were inches apart, breaths mingling. His hand lifted, slowly, hesitantly, as though pulled by gravity. He touched her waist lightly, almost reverently. Natalyia, he breathed, voice fragile. And then, finally, he let go of the wall around his heart. He kissed her. It wasn't passionate, not at first. It was gentle, careful, like a question he wasn't sure he was allowed to ask. She answered by leaning into him, her hand sliding to his shoulders. Then something inside both of them broke free. The kiss deepened, warm and desperate, filled with all the emotions they had buried for so long. It was a confession without words, a promise wrapped in trembling breaths. When they finally pulled away, Gabriel rested his forehead against hers. I shouldn't have done that, he whispered. You should have, she replied. He closed his eyes, a soft smile tugging at his lips. From that night onward, something changed. They didn't announce anything. They didn't label their feelings, but they both moved differently. Closer, gentler, more connected. Gabriel was still careful. Bodyguard first, everything else second. But Natalyia saw through the calm exterior. She saw the way his eyes softened when she entered a room, the way his hand hovered near hers when they walked, the way he listened, not out of obligation, but out of quiet devotion. Months passed, threats faded, peace settled around their lives. One sunny morning, Natalyia found Gabriel outside the mansion again, eating adobo from a small container. She sat beside him without asking. You never told me your dream, she said. He blinked. Dream? If you could do anything, be anything, she said. What would it be? He hesitated. I've never thought about it. Yes, you have, she said gently. Gabriel looked at the sky for a long moment. I want a quiet life, he said finally. A home, a small one, somewhere warm, maybe a family someday. Her heart tightened. In the Philippines? Yes, he said softly. That's where my roots are. She looked at him with a shy but determined smile. What if, she whispered, your future doesn't have to be in only one place? What if home is a person, not a country? He turned to her, and this time he didn't run. Years later, people would tell the story of how a Russian millionaire brought a Filipino bodyguard into her world, and how he changed her life more than all the wealth she possessed. But those who knew them closely understood the truth. He didn't just protect her. He taught her love. He taught her loyalty. He taught her warmth. And she, in return, gave him a place in a world that once felt too cold to belong to. Two souls from opposite worlds, finding home in each other. The coldest winter, softened by the warmest heart.